Welcome to What a Creep, the show with Margaret Donahue and Sonia Mansfield, talking about creeps from the past to the present.
This is your quick guide to the biggest creeps, jerks, assholes, and losers, the best of the worst.
From two nice ladies who want the world to be a little less creepy.
Welcome back to What a Creep. This is Margot Donahue, and my cohort in creepitude, as always, is the amazing Sonia Mansfield. Hey, Sonia.
Hello, my friend.
Hello, my friend. We are the podcast that talks about creeps from the past to the present. It's my turn to lead the discussion, and I love me a history creep. I love to go back in the past and find cool shit to talk about. So we're going to be talking about the Salem witch trials today. And
spooky.
It's spooky. Just to warn y'all, just to begin there, this is a very high overview that we're doing. So if you're getting a paper in this, if you're getting your doctorate in this isn't going to help you. I wish you well. You're going to think I'm an idiot. This is more of just like a flyover, like, hey, what was this thing? And what did it mean? What does it mean now? That's my kind of thing. That's the way I like to roll. But anyway, What a Creep podcast. We are on Facebook. We have a basic Facebook page, but that's where people go to complain about our language. I probably gave it away before, but we use salty language in this program. Just warning y'all.
Yeah, fucking yeah, we use them. All the dirty words. Fuck, shit, damn.
We have a private Facebook group. That's where Sonia and I are both most interactive. You type in What a Creep podcast group. You have to answer a few questions. Just promise not to be an asshole. And we'll let you in. And we do talk about creeps from the past to the present there. We talk about pop culture, all kinds of cool shit.
It's the best group on Facebook.
It is indeed. We are on Instagram, Threads, and Twitter and Blue Sky at What a Creep Podcast. Okay. All those places are What a Creep Podcast. At Twitter, actually, we're at Creep Pod because somebody had What a Creep on Twitter for 10 years and never used it. Creep. And I did dead name it. I refuse to say X. Elon Musk is an asshole. We're not doing that.
Yeah, fuck that guy.
We do have an old-timey email, whatacreeppodcast@gmail.com. That's a great place to send us suggestions for creeps and non-creeps. And if this is your first time listening, just so you know, we always end the show with somebody or something that is not a creep. So it gives you a little bit more hope about the world moving forward. But also, if you send us your address via email, we will send you stickers in the mail. So just wherever you are on the planet of Earth, if you're into stickers, give us your address. I'll drop them in the mail for you. And they are so cute.
I put some all over my water bottle.
Oh, really?
I was walking all over Oahu with my little water bottle with What a Creep on it, representing our show.
And dorking out?
Yep. And dorking out. Yeah.
What am I forgetting, Sonia? Oh, do you want to tell them about the website?
Yeah, go to whatacreeppodcast.com and it's everything you want to know about the show, but we're afraid to ask. You can click into each of those little blog posts and it opens up and you'll see our sources because we source everything we do. You can also just if on your phone, you can swipe left or right or whatever, or up or down, and you can see our show notes. Because again, we want to give people their credit for what they do. They've done the hard work and we're putting it all together for you. So if you're looking for a deeper dive on any of our creeps, that's a fabulous place to start. We also have a link to our merch shop. We have t-shirts and tote bags, face masks, and coasters. And
it has everything.
This store has everything. I can vouch for the t-shirts. They are super cozy.
Likewise.
I love them. They are very comfortable. I buy them. I cut the necks out and I sleep in them. They're
Same.
That's what all the cool kids do. There's also a link to our Patreon. Tell them about that, Margot. There's good stuff there.
Yes, there is. Patreon. It's What a Creep Podcast. We have a couple of very affordable options, and it just helps with the cost of the show. Sonia, I owe you money, by the way. That's
oh, cool. Yay.
But our first 9 seasons are on our Patreon wall. And then we put out 2 bonus episodes a month. And those 2 bonus episodes, first of all, they're on video if you want it.
Ooh, you can see what we look like.
And we really have a lot of fun with that one. And we just basically shoot the shit. We do like more shorter subjects and things that are happening really currently and stuff like that. And it's just a fun way to help the show if you're able and you'd like to. And we want to say thank you to Jessica, Larry, and Layla. They've all joined recently our Patreon page.
Thank you.
Thank you all very, very much for that.
It helps us pay for all those sources because we like to pay people for their work.
We do. We do actually pay real journalists for the work that they do. So that does help us with all those subscription costs. And also just every once in a while, I want to get a nice smoothie, and that money helps that makes that magic happen for me.
It does.
We
have to rent all these documentaries and
yes.
stuff.
We put a lot of time into this. We really
It's true.
But you know what, y'all? It's a labor of love.
It really is. We're just trying to make the world a little less creepy.
We are indeed. Another way you can support us is to leave us a review wherever you get your podcasts. We've been getting more people commenting on Spotify recently. Thank you very much for doing that. They make that real easy on the app on the phone. Also, Apple Podcasts. If you can leave us a few stars, that would be amazing. It helps counterbalance the people that don't like us for whatever reason. I think we're a goddamn delight, but whatever.
Yeah.
Who cares?
Who cares
Anyway,
what those people think.
I think we're ready to get into the show today. How about you, Sonia?
Let's get into it. I should have brought my witch's hat over here.
I know. I want to be first. We're going to begin with. I wanted to ask you: did you read *The Crucible* when you were in high school? By Arthur Miller. It's a play by Arthur Miller.
Yes, I did, and I saw the movie in the 90s, the one with Daniel Day-Lewis and Joan Allen and Winona Ryder, and I think that movie's really good.
My friend Stacy worked on that movie.
Oh.
Yeah. She worked in the art department, the art direction. She said that Winona, they all called her Winona Weiner because she didn't like being there.
Oh, well, that makes sense.
It was kind of a miserable shoot. I mean, look, and I think they shot it in New England, and it was, it was rough.
It looked like a miserable shoot, and it's not a laugh riot, that movie.
It's not the feel good hit.
It's a fucking bummer. So yeah, they weren't doing a big song and dance at the end, I suspect. Yeah.
Well, it's a play
yes, I did read it.
Okay. Well, it comes out in 1953. It's written by Arthur Miller, and it was written as a parable for the times of McCarthyism. And McCarthyism, in case y'all don't know, in America, our government decided that in the 50s, during the Cold War, the start of the Cold War, that there were a lot of communists in power in America. We had to get them out. And gay people, because being gay was illegal in most of the country at the time.
Yes.
And so people would come in and you could go in and if you were accused of being communist, if you gave up names, you would get less of a punishment. And
yes.
I'm not going to go. We'll do that a whole episode one day. We talked to Roy Cohn last week. So if you listen to that episode, we get into a little bit there. But Arthur Miller was disgusted by all that. And he was a very talented writer. So he just took this parable of a real life thing that happened. And he kind of, he changed it a bit. He sexed it up a little bit for the theater.
Yeah.
But it was pretty accurate to like what was going on at that time. And and we are going to be talking about the witch trials of Salem in 1692 and 1693. And I just want to give some background on what got them there. What happened to make this, a few girls go nuts and then everybody thinks it's the devil.
Mm-hmm.
So we start with Europe because as a lot of things in America, we steal a lot of crap from Europe and then make it our own. That's how we do things here.
It's how we roll.
That's how we roll. The Puritans came to America and people in America, the way we're raised in our amazing education system.
Yeah, it's so good.
It's so good. Excuse me, I do not want it. It's former President Trump today said he wants to get rid of the Department of Education. He went on Fox and Friends and said it. And no, we love our teachers. We just know that it's very tough wherever you live in this country, depending, especially in certain sectors of the country, they teach you some things more than other things. Yes. There's a lot of nowadays with books about racism that it's really unfair for the white kids to read about racism.
Yeah, it's making white kids feel bad.
It gives them the sads, and we don't want to do that.
Yeah, because the children of color don't feel sad when they read those books. It's so stupid. Anyway,
It's lame. But anyway, the Puritans came to America because they were mostly from England. And there's the Church of England that was created because Henry VIII wanted to marry all the chicks he wanted to marry until someone gave him a son. That's a whole other discussion for a whole other day. And no, I don't know what the hell it's all about. So please don't ask me. But so the Puritans wanted to follow the Bible very closely, super closely, and to be so much obedient of God. And they thought that the Church of England was getting just a little too liberal. They don't go to church often enough. They let people dress all crazy. They're not wagging their finger enough at people when they're in the pew every week.
Yes, the Church of England is so progressive.
It's wild. It was
ladies
lunacy.
Are all showing their ankles and stuff. Wild.
It's a party. So they come to America. They come to America today for religious freedom. But what they mean by that is they want to have their church and their rules, and they're going to impose it on a place. And they don't give a shit who else was there and what they were doing. It's all wrong.
The freedom for them to practice their religion and enforce it on others.
Right. And America was being, at the time, we had indigenous tribes in our country, and the English came along and basically said, we have guns, we have ammo, you can either join us or leave. If you don't pick either one of those, we're going to have a fight. The French Catholics came over and did the same thing. I mean, America is a very large country with a lot of ports around it. So people will sail in from around the world and then, and this is why we call ourselves the melting pot. I think it's what makes America great. We're a dumb country. We're mutts. We're kind of loud. We're boisterous, but we're fun. And that's what I love about this country. And so when people don't embrace that, it really annoys me, because it's when they want to make things so strict and so unfun, they don't understand. They're taking liberties away from people. They're robbing of their freedoms to make you feel more comfortable, and which is narcissism, and that's its own thing. But what's going on in Salem by the late 1600s in Europe, it was decided. There's always been a mystical quality about how do we make sense of the world, which is the reason why we create religions anyway. Why do we need a god or several gods? Because we need to make sense of weather. We need to make sense of why people are different. Why are some people left-handed? Why are some people this or that? And what becomes rather, what most people seem to land on is, well, that's the devil. It's got to be the devil. It's either God or the devil.
You're different. Devil.
It used to be left-handed people had a really hard time. I mean, they would get right. I mean, a lot of people had to become ambidextrous because that was a sign of there's all kinds of things that could be a sign of the devil.
What a weird thing to get obsessed about.
And yes. And there was this obsession with witches. Women, especially, men and women men and women, anybody can be caught by the devil, can be captured by the devil, can be wooed or whatever you want to call it by the devil. But it was established that women were especially vulnerable. So we have to really watch them.
Weak-minded? Is it because we're weak?
Because we can give birth, because we have our periods. I don't anymore, but there's all kinds of reasons why women are
I'm
othered.
still waiting to get my period, by the way, any day now.
We must decrease our bust. I'm with you, Sonia. Judy Bloom and I, we're rooting for you.
It's gonna happen.
It's gonna happen any second.
I'm finally going to be a woman.
So witches were being burned around the 1300s, the mid 1300s in England. And there are about 100,000 over 200 years. There were 100,000 men, women, children, animals executed for witchcraft. if the devil got to you, it was from a witch, not from the devil. It was from a witch. The devil got to the witch and the witch got to you.
How do they know the animals got possessed by the devil?
Okay, I'll give you an example, Sonia, and it's really gross.
Okay. Oh, yay.
Do you know what a witch cake is? This was one of the Salem witch trials. This is something that came up.
A witch cake?
A witch cake. It was decided that people did all kinds of things. And there's a whole, you and I were talking off the air about Monty Python and like, we found a witch, maybe burn her. And
can we burn her?
Well, if we throw her in the water and if she floats, she's a witch. But if she drowns, she's not a witch. I mean, there's all
right.
But those were like the things that were being created. It's called a witch cake. And I don't know when in England it was created, but they brought this to America. And the witch cake was a cake that you needed the urine of one of the children. And the person that you think that was possessed by the devil, and therefore became a witch. And they didn't call men warlocks. Men could be witches too. They were not called warlocks, but you had to get a urine sample from the person and you made a rye cake and you fed it to a dog. And if the dog died, they were possessed. I forget which one it was, but they made cakes with urine and they gave them to the dogs. Yes.
Gross.
Sonia made a face.
Poor dogs. They don't deserve that.
There's all kinds of things. If you have your eye color is 2 different shades, if you have red hair, that was considered,
Uh-oh.
Yeah, you're in trouble soon. Like my mother's half of the family, all of them, forget about it. I mean, there's always ways of othering people. And women, especially with the Puritans, it was very much about wearing dowdy clothes, lots of grays, and no big buckles or buttons or anything like that. And you're constantly working and you're constantly praying and you're making as many babies as you can and you're putting them to work. And there was no time for play. Your childhood was not about reading and writing and, your me time to kind of, get it, for yourself.
Right.
It was all about work. And then one day getting married to somebody and either, having a bunch of kids or, whatever. Or a lot of it's plowing in the fields. They're very much about the land. Okay. So they settle in New England, and then New England is combining of several states. So we're talking about Massachusetts here, and then we're right by the water. And once again, it's a port town. It's a port city, Salem. And there's Salem town, and then there's Salem village. And I didn't know this. This is what I learned.
What about Salem's Lot? Where is that located?
Salem's Lot, you have to listen to our Dorking Out show, which we put out last week, where Sonia and I talked about all the different Salem's Lots.
Yes.
But there's no Salem's Lot there. Not yet.
Okay.
Stephen King is not born for another 250 years. So you gotta wait. You gotta wait, Sonia.
He's a witch. Burn him.
Maybe burn him. Anyway, in Salem town, it's a port town. And what happens in a port town? All kinds of people from all kinds of places show up in a boat and they sell things or they buy things. And they're either there to deliver something or they're there to pick up something and deliver it someplace else. And it becomes a community. And there's shops and libraries and a school. And the wealthier people can live in the bigger places and the more working class people live in the smaller places. And it's kind of fun. And all of a sudden in Salem, at the town by the water, the pier, they have different kinds of people. You have indigenous people, you have French people, English people, you have people traveling from all over the world. So it goes from being a purely puritanical place where Puritans are based, all of a sudden all other faiths and religions or people with no particular faith start landing there. It becomes a city. It becomes a melting pot.
Yes.
And the Puritans, the true Puritans, the real strict ones were like, fuck that. We're not living. No, we're going to live the way God really wants us to live, in misery. Like just working all the time and misery.
Bitch move. Just move then.
So they do, Sonia. So there's Salem Village, which is where all this shit happens. And in Salem Village, there's maybe 500 people tops around the time that these trials happen. And they're getting into neighborly fights. Do you have Nextdoor? Do you know about Nextdoor? Yeah. It's an app. I don't know if they have it worldwide, but I know from my I joined it once and I can't escape from it now. But every once in a while, you get like somebody pops and says, "Oh, that guy with the red flannel shirt on 8th Avenue is doing it again," and then you got to look in like, "Well, what's that all about?" I mean,
Somebody keeps putting trash in my trash can. Who cares? It's trash. You weirdos. Someone came by and took my recycling out of my recycling. Who cares?
who gives a shit?
People are so weird. But there you go.
They just
That's
want
what
things
my
the way
next
they
door
want
app
things.
is.
Yeah, and everybody, Facebook does this everywhere you can find. Yeah, this is happening. And there are problems. There's not that many people, but they're in a tough space because it's New England. It's not, yes, you have grass and soil and things like that, but it's not as bountiful as it is in other places. And New England weather is really rough. It gets really hot. It gets really cold. So you have all these families and they're growing up and they're marrying and then they're having kids and they're moving. And then gradually the Puritan population is diminishing because people realize, you know what, life is tough as it is. Why am I making myself even more miserable following these rules that they have? I mean, I'm already working 12, 14 hours a day as
Who's
it
got
is.
time for that?
You only live to 40 if you're lucky. I mean, there's just a lot of reasons. Like people along the way are like, yeah, that's not for me anymore. You do you, boo.
Yeah.
And the people that were the Puritans that were there for a while or had generations that were living there at this point were pissed off because it used to be we were the ones that set the rules and we were the ones that everybody had to listen to. And now all
this
of
sounds familiar.
Yes. And now all of a sudden you're telling me that we should have a separation of church and state and that we should
How
have
dare you.
elected officials and it should be a democratic process and we should be discussing things. And it shouldn't be just, well, God says this, so we have to do it. And it's one person's interpretation of God. Okay. So there's a couple of families, there's two families in particular that they're fighting each other and there's some tension. Like there's one point where a flood happens in the village and it floods out one farm. And so then they have to let that farm, like let the water kind of recede. And then it's decided like, well, how do we help people if they can't produce crops because their crops are flooded? What can we do? So then people have to work together. So now you have to work closely with people who don't agree with you on your religious ideals, but you agree on other things. And some people are like, yeah, that's what cohabitating means. And some people are like, this makes me even angrier. And the Puritans got even angrier. And so they became very strict in their, very, very strict in their ideals. And so what we have is by the time so we're going to 1692, there's upheaval about we don't have the United States yet. George Washington isn't even born yet. We're just figuring our shit out, basically. They're figuring their shit out. I don't claim these people. I'm pure Irish peasant stock, Anyway, so there's these girls and their name. So the first few that are supposedly afflicted with witchcraft, and they're very young. It's Betty Paris, who's 9. Oh, I didn't name something. Sorry. Sonia, I forgot.
Yeah. The sources.
The sources. We always list our sources.
Oh, so sorry, everybody.
We're a little out of practice. We put out a couple of episodes the last couple of weeks from past. So let me start here. The Salem witch trials were a series of hearings and prosecutions that took place in colonial Massachusetts from February 1692 to May 1693. These trials resulted in the execution of over 20 individuals. Most of them were women who were accused of practicing witchcraft. The hysteria began in the Puritan village of Salem, which is now present-day Danvers, Massachusetts, but the panic quickly spread to other communities in the region. In this episode, we talk about what life was like in Salem Village and examine the factors that led to nearly 20% of the population to believe that they or their neighbors were involved in witchcraft, which is a lot of people.
That is a lot of people. I heard they were eating the dogs. They were eating the cats.
Trigger warnings, descriptions of executions, and I say religious abuse. That to me, that is. But anyway, the Salem witch trials, there's a TED Talk, History Channel, Smithsonian Channel, Weird History, Wikipedia, of course, Crash Course, European History. It's a fascinating look at witchcraft and witch trials in Europe. And those people knew how to do it. America does it, but we do it just a little more I don't know. Europeans know how to really go crazy. History.com, Salem.org, Penn Today, New England Law, Smithsonian Magazine, and the National Endowment for the Humanities. Okay.
Good job, friend.
Thank you. So we have these two little girls, and their names are Betty Paris and Abigail Williams. And Betty is 9, Abigail is 11. And they live in a house with their two parents, and they have an indentured servant, an enslaved person who is a woman, Tituba. I'll look that up in a second. Sorry. But she's also featured in The Crucible. In The Crucible, she's an African-American slave, but in reality, this is so messed up, but they would capture indigenous people.
Yes.
And mostly girls, and turn them into maids and housekeepers and whatever else they wanted. And it was either live with our family and do this, or we'll execute you. And so
fucked up.
Yeah. So they had an enslaved woman who worked for them, who was either probably from Guyana or Venezuela. Venezuelans, another one that we talk about a lot here. Someone's obsessed with them. She was, when the parents had to go out and do business and overnight or whatever, this woman was in charge of these little girls. And for her, the way she was raised, that when you have little kids and they're in a house all day, they get very squirrely very quickly. So you have to come up with games to keep them occupied, or they're just going to whine and complain and break everything. It's just what kids do. Puritan kids weren't supposed to do that. Puritan kids were just to always be obedient. You never questioned work.
Right.
You never questioned anything. You didn't have too many high highs or low lows. It was very much about being even killed.
No, you do what you're told and get out of the way.
And get out of the way. Make yourself invisible if you have to, but that's what you have to do. And these girls were just energetic girls, and they were playing and having a good time. And this enslaved person was teaching them games from her childhood, and just taking like The Onion, and like, let's pretend this is the moon, and let's pretend that's that. And she's playing all these pretend games. So these girls have a thing called an imagination. So they would make up games.
What?
And the parents,
that's for boys.
and the parents would be like, stop doing that. That's not okay. But when they were gone, the girls would do it. But when the parents would, like any kid being raised in this world. And these girls, all of a sudden, as they're getting older, they're getting, it happened very quickly that these girls were having these fits. And they said that they felt like there was needles prickling their skin all over. And they would scream and they would bark and they would run around. They would hide under furniture. They would roll their eyes, like they were having and they kind of knew about epilepsy then, but it was an epilepsy. It would just happen out of nowhere. And it goes on for about a month. And then the parents try to get help, and they go to they bring a doctor over, and the doctor looks at them and says, I can't find anything wrong with them. So it's got to be the devil. Now, where's a witch? There's got to be a witch somewhere, because that's the only reason why these girls are behaving this way. In the meantime, there's two other girls, Ann Putnam Jr. and the Putnam family is one of those families I mentioned before that kind of ran the town, and they're still in their lineage. And then there was Elizabeth Hubbard, who was 17. So they're 9, 11, 12, and 17. There's 4 girls. All of a sudden, they're starting to act funny. They're all kind of
it could have been anything. It could have been epilepsy. It could be they were having an allergic reaction to something. They probably are. They're all drinking like out of the same like water.
Yes.
Like it really could have been anything, right?
It could have been anything, and they still don't know exactly what it was. But I mean, there is like the gender context, and there's just some things that are here that I said to you before, like women's roles were very strict. And then there were Cotton Mather was a person. He was a Boston publisher. He put out pamphlets about witchcraft. Like the stories of witchcraft were coming over from Europe, and they were bringing that with them to the States. And they were saying, hey, did somebody in your life acting wacky all of a sudden? It's probably witchcraft. All you have to do is get the devil out of them. And no one wants to say that the devil's in them. That's not fun.
No, I heard the devil went down to Georgia, though.
He was looking for a soul. You know what I tell you?
Yeah.
I think the devil wins that contest. when they're doing the fiddling at the end of that song.
I mean, it's pretty good.
It's damn good. I always think the devil
Yeah.
wins. But anyway.
Spoilers.
Spoiler. And it's Tituba. I'm sorry, Tuba. Tituba is the name of the enslaved person.
Okay.
And when you look at drawings, especially from that time, of the white people versus non-white people and how they're represented and spoken about. I mean, she's being othered like nobody's business. And that's supposed to be in and of itself kind of like, look what's going on here. Right. So the girls, and they do the witch cake and the dog dies. And so they think, oh, that's got to be witchcraft. And they even had they had a called a touch test. And the touch test, get this, if your kid or just the person you're trying to, if somebody is having one of these fits and the way you calm them down is by touching them and just saying, it's okay, like calm down. And if they calm down, you're the witch because you have special touching powers. Not that you're good at de-escalating a situation. There has to be something terrible about you. It's super messed up.
It's so messed up.
It's so messed up.
By the way, I'm going to start referring to my pussy as a witch cake. That's my new nickname.
What happens is that the girls basically say, I guess it's the devil. I guess Tituba must have put some spell on us because they're kids and they don't know. And they're just... So Tituba goes to the magistrate and they don't have a police force. I mean, everything is kind of ad hoc. In Salem town, they have systems and organizing because the people decided, let's all create systems and organize. Salem Village, like, nah, we have Bible and farming. That's it. Like, that's all we do. That's all we are. So I think it's boredom, quite frankly. I think it's just hormones and boredom that like made everybody I wouldn't last 10 minutes in the Puritan village. But anyway, I never like going to them.
I wouldn't last 10 minutes in any like other time other than this one.
Yeah, same.
Like, I don't want to be dirty or hot or
hungry
hungry or without my phone, or I'm the biggest baby in the whole world. Like, I wouldn't last not 1 second. Did you ever watch? I'm sorry, I'm not going to derail this too much. Did you ever watch on PBS? They used to have things like Pioneer House or Frontier House, and they would take these families and have them like rough it, like live like how they did back then. Like the kids would get all super skinny because
there's no
food. They're getting food and like just like cooking and doing laundry takes like forever, like all this stuff. And I was like, you couldn't pay me enough.
It was usually a husband that really wanted to go. That was like a history nerd and really wanted to go. And they usually had the best time. There was one guy, I think, that was really pretty wealthy, and he brought his wife and daughters there. And he wanted to like skin a rabbit on the air and they wouldn't let him. And he freaked out about it because he's used to being in control. But he was just like, I think it's great here. And his wife was like, this sucks. I want a laundry machine. I want a dishwasher. This is bullshit.
Yeah. Well, I just remember there was one episode where a boy, he got really sick.
Giacomo?
Like, I don't remember what
his name,
but I don't remember his name, but I remember like he wasn't eating. He ended up getting and it was something ridiculous. Like he literally he cut himself or something. And then it got like super infected and he got really sick and like and it's like, you don't think about that stuff now, but
because we have vaccinations and we have medicine.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that wasn't a thing back then. Anyway.
No. Well, no, I'm glad you brought that up because it is misery. Like that's the thing you have to remember. Like what are these people, what are their lives like?
This stuff was so hard.
Right. And if you go back, there's no great art or literature or music that comes from this time, from this place. There just isn't, because your soul and your heart are not happy. You're just existing. Right. As far as I'm concerned, me, the 21st century woman, is like wagging my finger and saying, nope. But
every day was
drudgery.
Work. Yeah. There was stuff to be done.
From sun up to sundown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds terrible.
Yeah. No, thank you. So they're there are magistrates that are in charge, and basically a court is set up, and it's decided, okay, witchcraft is definitely the problem, and it starts to spread. The girls accuse Tituba, and then there are other people, other girls that are being affected, and you don't know, are they just imitating what these other girls are doing, or is it psychosomatic? And you think, oh my God, I had an impure thought the other day. That's probably me. I've got the devil, and then they start freaking out.
Or do they just not like that person?
And that happens quite a bit too. There's quite a bit of that. And later on, some of the girls admitted they were lying. And I just think that they were bored. Their minds were just you get fanciful. Your imagination just kind of goes crazy. And you're not in an environment where that's allowed. And that's going to it would make me nuts in no time. So there's like a woman I loved this when I read about her. She was accused of being a witch because she was in her 50s. She wasn't married and she only wore black. I'm like, that's me.
You're the witch. Burn her.
And they think that the witches are actually hurting people. Obviously, they're an abomination to God, and it's going to lead to sin, and it's going to lead to everyone's downfall. We have to take care of this. So the bright idea was, we'll create these courts, and we'll put 7 judges on there, and we'll have people come in, and if you say you're guilty, we'll punish you, but you won't die. If you say you're innocent and you lose, and no, you're not allowed to have a defense attorney, by the way, it's all just prosecution.
Right.
You'll be executed if you're guilty. If they find you guilty,
damn.
If you don't admit to anything, they can't put you in jail. But they can punish you to get you to confess. So Tituba eventually just confesses because she's in jail for several days, and she realizes like they just look at her and think, you're different. You're an other. This had to be you. You're the one thing that's different in that family. So she says, yeah, it's not my fault though. The devil visited me and told me to do this. And so I tricked the girls, and that's my fault. That's my bad. Sorry. And by the way,
please don't burn me.
Please don't. She didn't get burned, but she did when people were in jail for months at a time. And it was men, women, and children. There were pregnant women in there. There were kids as young as 4 in the prisons, and they died. There are people dying in there because there's not enough food to get to people. There's not enough people to run the jail. I mean, it's really terrible. So they have these trials, and the girls would be questioned and then would start having these spasms in court. And I think, just me, I'm like, they're acting up in order to maybe get some attention. Maybe it's retribution to somebody for something they think they did. And maybe it's just kind of a game. I don't think these girls were possessed by the devil, is my point. I just don't.
Correct.
I don't buy that. And once again, it's men and women and children, but 78% are identified as female.
Yeah.
And they're executed and they're hanged in the town. And it's not like, and I'm sorry, that it's the imagery is not, but anyway, the gallows that they're hung from, normally it's there's a platform and your body just drops. Yeah. And what's supposed to happen is your neck breaks, you shit yourself. I know, but you go pretty quickly. You're supposed to. Mm-hmm. Maybe under a minute. But these people didn't have any kind of they had just like a ledge, like kind of just jump off. Just do that.
So awful.
They pastors, they hung pastors, they hung people who were landowners, it didn't matter if you're rich or you're poor. It was a lot of different kinds of people. And it was going on for months and months and months. And there were people, and they invited the press to come because they wanted to scare the crap out of everybody else. And the press is showing up, from like New York and other places, and they're in Boston. And they're like, they're writing about it because it's exciting, but it's also just like, what is this? It's a kangaroo court. There's no up is down. There's like nothing makes sense.
That's so awful.
And it's so awful. And people, like, you just do one thing to piss somebody off and then you were on the list. And the only way, and they had things like spectral evidence, they called it, They in the first batch of trials, which is basically spectral evidence, was if you had a vision in your dreams, and I said, "Oh my God!" So I dreamt that Sonia went up Market Street and she was, putting spells on people, and they'd say like, "They bring you in. Margaret was dreaming about you. What do you have to say about that?" Eventually, they decided.
I'd be like, everyone dreams about me. I'm fucking dope.
You're obsessed with me. Stop being obsessed with me.
Yeah, why are you so obsessed with me, Margot?
So these executions are terrible. It's an embarrassment. When you're executed because you're even dead, you're considered soiled. You're not godly. They had a mass grave. So what families would do was after dark, they would go and dig up the person that was killed to put them in a more proper grave.
Oh my gosh.
Because they didn't even bury them that deep. It's really like they didn't think things through. And
imagine that.
Yeah. And it's only 500 people that live there. So 20% of them is a couple hundred people. There's eventually people are like, wait a second, this is getting really convenient. We're just, this doesn't seem to make any sense. There's no rhyme or reason going on here. And eventually it only took about a year and then it stopped. They just stopped having these cases. They stopped doing it. And over time, the younger ones admitted, there's a few girls that later admitted, yeah, I made it up. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that, but, the devil made me do it, that kind of thing. And so eventually they were allowed to, some of them were allowed to come back. Some of them moved far away. But it took a good 300 years before there were people who actually started pardoning these people, obviously posthumously. But they eventually, the area embraced it, what they were known for. They did this thing where they embraced what they were known for, even though it was bad, and they tried to make amends for it. They tried to, pay people back if they lost their homes and their livelihood. There was reparations for people, which was also controversial because some people are like
downright un-American, if you ask
me.
The worst thing you could do ever is admit you learned something.
It's the Roy Cohn way. Never say you're wrong. Never apologize.
Right.
You didn't do anything wrong. In the end, so that eventually over time, it was 19 people that were executed, but there were a couple of hundred that were charged and had to go through the trials. And it was just this big shitstorm. And eventually there were reparations. And over time, they've actually found the spots where these things actually happened, where the hangings actually happened. And they put up a display there. They honor that place. It's a part of their history. And also history's there to remind us when we fucked up. And we need to keep that in mind so we don't do it again. Because as we talk about on this show all the time, history can repeat itself if you don't learn the lesson. You're just going to, the universe is just going to keep pushing that on you.
Yeah.
So it's a combination of religious hysteria. It's a combination of just two fractions of families that for like 3 or 4 generations were just pissed because more people move in. So they would move the lines of the properties and the property lines would change. And that's another thing I love to see like on TikTok or like people pissed off about their property line. Like that's my property. That's right. That started happening. So there's nothing to entertain people because they don't really search for that. So people stew in their juices of their hatred and they pass it on their kids who pass it on to their kids. It's a tough life. So there's lots of things that kind of came together. There is a theory that, and you know this as a baker, cooking rye bread can be kind of tricky, like baking rye bread.
Right.
The way you ferment that culture for rye bread, if it's not cooked properly, it can cause psychosis, like close to LSD. But scientists have pretty much said, nah, that's probably not what it was. It's because it just was so random and not everybody ate the food. And it seems to be more of just what we'd say groupthink that, even though it's crazy, everyone started believing it. And then they started pointing the fingers at other people. And it was just, it's just human frailty.
And it still happens. There's
Yes.
still like, and now it feels even more prevalent with social media. Like, somebody shares something and then somebody reads it and they're like, yeah, that happened to so and so who knows so and so who knows so and so, and so it's the same kind of thing. It just looks a little different now, but
Yeah.
the same thing happens. I mean, again, I made the joke earlier about they eat the cats and they eat the dogs.
Right.
That started when like a woman repeated something that she heard that somebody else said or something and posted it on social media, and the next thing you know,
Trump's
repeating it at
right.
at a debate, and now all these people are like invading that town and being shitty to all these Haitians who are there legally
and to work jobs
Yeah.
other people didn't
And
want, and they're
that's a
raising the
different-
housing prices, and they're bringing cool food with them, good
Yes.
food, and
it's an example of groupthink. Like
Right.
a lot of what's happening in MAGA right now is that sort of thing.
yes, I'm saying it. Yeah,
And they tried to do, I guess, their equivalent of a witch would be like
a liberal.
Yeah, you're woke,
You're woke.
or
They say you're a
and they
lib.
still-
You're a
and-
lib.
yeah, or
T word, which I don't like to say,
but
but
yeah, or they say they like to call men pedos when
or beta.
Yeah, well, you're a pedophile, and
or
it's like,
pedophile is
that's-
thrown around very easily, right?
Yes, like that's their witch. Like, we should be investigating this person. They're 100% a pedophile. Elon Musk does this all the time. He calls people pedophiles.
Yeah.
And some dude sued him, and I believe that person might have won, actually. We talked about it in our Elon Musk episode.
He did a town hall in Pennsylvania and had a whole conversation with somebody about the Dominion voting machines and how they're really messed up. And he just like, oh, really? That's interesting. No,
Dude's
it's
gonna
false.
get sued.
Yeah, you're going to get sued. This is why Fox, got sued. It's but one person has, one person has a
Yeah.
thing. Oh, I heard a guy did this. Oh, well, I heard a guy do that. And I saw this sign the other day, this billboard. Oh my God, I saw a billboard just like that. It's people make connections and then they draw conclusions. And sometimes the real truth is just mundane.
Yeah.
Sometimes the ultimate thing is like groupthink, and people are flawed. And, you get flawed people that are super bored and overworked and don't have long lives, and their lives are kind of drudgery.
Yeah.
Your brain will start making up shit.
So of the 19 people that were executed, were a majority of them women?
Yes.
Or okay.
Yes. There were 4, I think it was 4 of them were men, and one of them was a pastor. I mean, there were, and this is the thing, like, one of them, here's a good one. One of the men that was being executed, he's up there and he's fighting for his life. He has a family. They're going to be destitute without him. And he starts reciting the Lord's Prayer because someone said a person that's possessed by the devil cannot recite prayer. They can't recite the Bible. So he starts saying the Lord's Prayer, and he's got the hood on his head. They got the noose around his neck. They're ready to kick him off, and he's begging. And they decide, oh, that's the devil fucking with us. He's not, he doesn't really know that. And he was a priest. Like, he was
they were going to kill him no matter what. Like, there's nothing he could have done.
Right.
So,
and his poor family. Right. And so they had to and he's not getting the proper burial because they're religious. There's the proper, So anyway, that's our story today, folks. The Salem witch trials.
Good job, my friend.
Thank you. And there's some really cool links, by the way, in our show notes. You should check out.
Definitely check it out, y'all. I thought it would be fun for our non-creep to talk about one of the most famous witches of all time.
Ooh.
Do you know who Margaret Hamilton is?
Yes, I do. But tell everybody. Oh, I love this. Oh, good job, Sonia.
She's an actress who is best known for playing the Wicked Witch of the West in the Wizard of Oz. I got there.
My brain just went 1939, 1939.
1939 Wizard of Oz. She is a former school teacher. She worked as a character actress in some movies before she got that role. She was born in Cleveland, Ohio, and she did like a lot of community theater, worked at the Children's Theater there, and went to college and got a degree to become a kindergarten teacher, but she really wanted to do acting. So she had her degree to teach, but she went to Hollywood anyway. And she had a pretty successful career. Like she did radio, television, stage. She was very funny. She worked with like W.C. Fields and Mae West and Harold Lloyd, Buster Keaton, Abbott and Costello, like all the like big comedians. And then in 1938, she gets The Wicked Witch of the West. And she actually got really hurt filming
Yeah, she
this.
did. Yeah.
Yeah, she got third-degree burns.
From the paint. And
yeah,
from the smoke,
and-
that scene with the smoke but the water and the smoke. Yeah.
So she was also one of the people who was actually like really kind and nice to Judy Garland on the set of that movie.
Yeah, the men were jealous of her.
Yeah.
Ugh.
And she wasn't. But she didn't sue even though she got injured, because she's like, I know how this business works and I'd never work again. But, I'm like, she should have sued them. But
Yeah.
I understand. She was married once and she got divorced. And she had a son. She was raising that son all by herself. So she never took a studio contract because she felt like she had more earning potential going from project to project instead of tying herself to one studio. And she really liked that flexibility. And she really cared about children's education as well. Like that wasn't something that left her when she started acting. And so she actually worked she was on the Beverly Hills Board of Education from 48 to 51.
Beverly Hills, what a thrill. Troop Beverly Hills.
Beverly Hills 90210.
No, Troop Beverly Hills. That was remember that when they do it? It's cookie time.
We have an episode about that one on Dorking Out if you want to hear it. She was also a Sunday school teacher. Eventually she moved to Manhattan for her adult life. She spoke at the University of Connecticut there in the children's literature class. She participated in like a MS readathon for multiple sclerosis research, and she would meet with local winners of the contest, and she was apparently like super delightful. She lived in Gramercy Park.
Yeah.
And her neighbors said that like she super loved children and that they were often afraid of her because of the Wicked Witch of the West. And her family said that like she was always trying to show children that like she wasn't that character, and that that you don't have to be afraid of her, or that people aren't, that they're playing characters in the movies. So she actually did an episode of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood.
Yeah.
To like explain the difference between like acting and not acting, and that you don't need to be afraid. She also went on Sesame Street as the Wicked Witch of the West, but then she scared people. And all these parents wrote letters. Her appearance scared people. It was so sad because she loved kids. Really, she loved kids, and she didn't want to scare them, but like she was never ashamed of the role. She was glad she did it, and she was apparently like a really lovely person. She was also a big animal lover, and she donated a lot of money to like animal welfare charities. And she used to do like public service announcements asking people to spay and neuter their pets.
Yay.
And oh my God, I didn't write down when she died. I'm so sorry. I know that she passed away in 85. So she would have been probably in her 80s at that point. Sorry, I don't know why I didn't write that part down.
It's how she lived, Sonia. That's the important part.
It is the important part. So that's our non-creep, Margaret Hamilton.
I love that, Sonia. Good job.
Thank you.
Well, if you like the sound of our voices, and we've been hinting about it already, we also co-host another show that's called Dorking Out, where we dork out about movies. Our last episode, we talked about Salem's Lot because
So fun.
HBO Max dropped a new version of it.
Yeah.
But we won't mostly, talk about the 1979 one.
Yes.
What are we talking about next, Sonia?
We are continuing our scary movie month. We are going to be talking about 1980s Prom Night, which I am so excited for because it's just like 80s slasher, but also got disco. Sure.
I'm
and it's
into
got
it.
Jamie Lee Curtis. I think this one's going to be super fun.
And you said Leslie Nielsen. It's his last dramatic role.
It's probably one of his last serious roles because Airplane came out the same month, and we all know what happened. Surely he can't be serious. We all know what happens after that. But I think this one's going to be super fun. So definitely give us a listen.
Well, we're always looking for suggestions for creeps and also non-creeps. So great places to reach out to us at all those places I mentioned at the top of the show. Our email, once again, is whatacreeppodcast@gmail.com. And if you're interested and you like some stickers, send us your address. We'll drop them in the mail for you. Sonia, where can they find you?
You can find me at thesoniashow.com and The Sonia Show on Twitter and Instagram and TikTok and Facebook and Blue Sky and Threads, all the places. Where can people find you, my friend?
I'm at brooklynfitchick.com and I'm at brooklynfitchick for for Instagram and Threads. For TikTok and Twitter, I'm at Brooklyn Margot. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for checking us out. We really appreciate it. In the meanwhile, we'll be back next week with a new episode. So during that time, until you're waiting like crazy for the next episode to show up in your phone, we always like to say, be good, be kind. Don't be a creep.
Be a creep. Thank you for listening to us talk about creeps. You can follow us at What a Creep Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
But don't follow us too closely.
You can email us your creepy stories at whatacreeppodcast@gmail.com.
But please keep your dick pics to yourself.